23rd International President of her beloved Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. She holds 4 honorary doctorate degrees and is recognized as one of the most articulate, well-informed women of our time. She is also the founder of the Pat Rat Foundation for Education, which raises awareness and funds for HBCUs. You have seen her on stage. You have seen her on film, and you see her daily in your living rooms. We are so thrilled you will get to see her today as she brings her wit, energy, and hosting prowess as our moderator for this important and lively discussion on family caregiving. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the incomparable, the inimitable Cheryl Underwood to the AARP stage. Take it away, Cheryl.
Well, thank you, Reggie. And matter of fact, I'm going to offer you a job to go on tour with me when COVID is over to be my MC, because that was not just a kind introduction, but very energetic. And also, I'd like to thank AARP for your ongoing education efforts and advocacy on behalf of our nation's 48 million family caregivers. Every year, they provide about $470 billion in unpaid care for their loved ones who are aging or living with disabilities. These caregivers help ensure that they can continue to stay in their homes and communities. And family caregivers represent every demographic, as Reggie stated earlier, and their stories are unique. Their cultural traditions often influence our caregiving experience, and the caregiving journey of Black people is often framed by cultural expectations to care for one's elders in community. However, with existing structural inequities and lack of access to quality services and supports, these expectations can come at a cost to their financial and health well-being. And I will say this, I think while we're understanding inequities, we also need to understand that this expectation could come as a cost, and a cost to the well-being of the family of the caregiver. So it's when one serves, the entire family is serving as the caregiver. So today, we're going to have some real talk on this issue. And we're also going to hold that thought, because you know I'm on a computer. I'm a great comedian, but I'm a decent computer person. We're going to talk about this significant impact on the community, and we want y'all to walk away with some pearls. I see one of our panelists are wearing some, but we're going to give you some pearls of wisdom. And I want to tell you what those pearls are. Our goals for this conversation are that we want to raise awareness of this issue. We want to delve into it in a way that we as a community don't often feel comfortable doing. We want to normalize, and this is our second goal.
Okay, guys, we had some issue dropped in. We're going to go right back to our video. But in the meantime, since we had that interruption, guys, this is your caregiver supporter, Queen C. Pinkston, right here. And today we're talking about how the community and culture support Black family caregivers. And so let me just take a minute and go ahead and introduce some information. So we're talking, coming in from AARP. And as we get back to our video, because it's some dynamic information, my computer just has a glitch and jumped in there, and I don't know what that was about. Hopefully we are taking care of that. Okay, so AARP offers a wealth of information, guys, and I'm not here to encourage anybody to sign up for AARP or anything like that. We are here for the information on family caregivers. You might already be a member, I don't know, but I'm just saying the information is awesome. The question is, as we're talking about today, community and culture support for Black family caregivers. Why African Americans cope better as family caregivers. So this information we're giving today, it states that in an article, it explores how the community and cultural support help Black family caregivers manage the challenges right, of caregiving. So it highlights the sense of purpose and commitment many African American caregivers feel despite often facing more burdensome caregiving situations. So I'm going to try to get us back to the video, and hopefully we can hear exactly this dynamic information that we need.
Talking about all aspects of caregiving and the caregiving experience in an effort to help people know they're not alone and it's okay to ask for help. We also want people to share potential solutions and tools and resources to assist family caregivers with some of their emotional, financial, and social needs. Now, I myself am a caregiver. Most of you who know me and watch me on TV, you know my story. Is over a 25-year caregiver, and I'm always interested in gaining additional knowledge that can be used to assist my own situation. So, are we ready to learn more? Because I know I surely am ready to learn more as we welcome our panelists. Okay, let me make sure. Let's see. Let's welcome our first panelist, Rita Chula, the Director of Caregiving in the AARP Public Policy Institute. Welcome, Rita. Melanie Campbell, the President and CEO of the National Coalition for Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. Welcome, Melanie. Dr. Romeo Stockett, a member of the Health and Wellness Committee for 100 Black Men of America, Incorporated. Wow. Also, he's a brother of Omega Psi Phi, and I think, Melly, aren't you a sister of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated? Absolutely. Wow. And Dr. Stockett, you both have a love for each other. Dr. Stockett as a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Let us welcome Aisha Atkins, constituency organizer for Caring Across Generations. And let us also welcome Lakeisha Foster Stickney, the Policy and Outreach Director for the House Democratic Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. Welcome to our panel. And we really have a wealth of knowledge here that I think everybody can benefit from. So let's see, what is my next task here? Because I'm on a talk show on TV, but when you're working with AARP and the Congressional Black Caucus, you got to have yourself in order. And yes, I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and the 23rd International President, but I'm wearing red for AARP. Let's get to our first question. First question is, let's see. How about we flip it just a little bit? And I know that a few of you have your own caregiving story. So let's take a minute or two to briefly share your journey. Let's see, where should I start? Let's see, where would you like to start? Rita, yes. Rita, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Cheryl, and thanks for your wonderful introduction. I entered into on my caregiving journey almost 20 years ago, as I was caring for my grandmother. And shortly after she passed, my mother began to exhibit really troubling symptoms, and we spent a number of years trying to figure out what was going on. And eventually, through misdiagnosis and then an actual diagnosis, she was found to have frontotemporal dementia, which, many people know about Alzheimer's, but they don't know about the other related dementias, and frontotemporal is one of those. So from that point to about 12 years later, her passing, unfortunately, last October, my family and I really struggled to support and care for her. Of course, it was a labor of love for us, but the journey was made difficult by many of the things that we will be discussing today. And I think one of the important pieces, and I'm so grateful that you mentioned that earlier, is that journey was not just mine as the primary caregiver. I am am the mother to two wonderful young children who are 6 and 8 and who were born into this situation, as well as the wife of a wonderful husband. And this journey has been all of ours. And, you know, again, the challenges that came with it, we will continue to discuss, but there were many joys as well.
We want to impart that help is always there, but it's the family that comes together, it's the community that comes together, and it's not without its challenges. Even though it's a duty and a noble duty to care for someone, it's not without its challenges. Let's go to Melanie. Would you like to share your journey?
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, AARP, for this invitation, all of my panel colleagues. For me, I have not had that experience when it comes to my parents, but I have had it when it comes to siblings, not long term, but I had a sister back in 2011 who became really, really ill, passed away. Actually had two sisters within 30 days pass away, but one who we had to show up and be present in the situation in the hospital. And there's a lot of what I learned so much in going through that with my sister Ruby was learning about hospice care and the things that and the challenges that it pulls with family, decisions that you have to make, end of life decisions. And so it changed my perspective. And I had to grow up pretty fast because I'm the baby of the family, the youngest of the family. But I had to help my mother and others make some really, really hard decisions. And I think that's part of the challenge of being able to deal with the decisions that you have to make that you never thought you'd come to face, but we all have to face them. So that's been one of the things. And more recently with my brother, who had some challenges, and you have to make real hard decisions, and had to help him through some challenges he's still going through. But with our family, just being able to know that as one of the children who didn't have children, and as a sibling, the responsibilities that we have to be there for each other. So those two are two of my personal experiences.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think that's something that you and I share. I'm in the middle. You were the youngest, and then dealing with caregiving for a sibling, you know, and to make those types of decisions.
Wow.
And I thank you for sharing your story. Dr. Stockett.
Oh, yes. When I just, as a part of our discussions with AARP, the 100 leadership in the health and wellness, when I realized that this was going to be the topic, I actually jumped at the opportunity to be a part of this discussion. Wow. My experience is twofold. One, professionally, as I owned a home hospice practice for a number of years, where in the practice, of course, we went from bedside to benevolence as far as developing programs, projects, and connecting families to resources as they prepared to be a caregiver and during the process. And then, of course, after, should that happen. And to one of the points that we were discussing before, many folks do not necessarily die in hospice care. Some of them show signs of recovery and are taken off hospice. So there's a lot of dynamics that are happening in that area. One thing that we're going to discuss tonight, and one thing that the two of you have pointed out already, is the dynamics between the family and who does what and where and the decisions. So I welcome the opportunity to contribute on the part of the resources and the services of hospice. But I've also been a caregiver for the last few years of my mother's life, several other relatives, and on the point of the role of men as caregivers and men as single dads. I've also been a single parent for a number of years. And so those dynamics all come together enhance our ability and willingness to serve as caregivers. But so I welcome the opportunity to be a part of this discussion. Thank you.
And you know, we have programs like in Zeta Phi Beta, we have a program, Elder Care. And I think this would be a great discussion to be had within our fraternities and sororities, as some people will become a caregiver very, very young, or they're not just caregiving for a sibling, they may be caregiving for a parent of some sort, or maybe even a member of the organization who really does not have a lot of family, and that bond is dependent upon someone saying, I know you need me and I'm there when you need me. So I would love to see you consider to partner with the 9 Black Greek letter organizations so we can extend this discussion. And it might be great for AARP and the Congressional Black Caucus to do this as a process, that it goes through other organizations as well, because I think this would be very beneficial. Let's go to, absolutely. I think it'd be a global situation, especially in our organization, our chapter states and regions. Let's go to Lakeisha. Would you like to share your story?
Hi, thank you, ARP, for having me. And so what I'll say is, at this point in my life, I have not yet been a primary caregiver, but as you noted, Cheryl, and Rita, you as well, that when one serve, we all serve. And so I've had to support, my grandmother, who cared for her mother well into her early 90s, who had a severe case of rheumatoid arthritis, who she was on crutches all her life, and from crutches to wheelchair, to the point where she had to have some of her limbs amputated. And so I was able to see, kind of, not only was it a labor of love for my grandmother and for us as well, who supported her, but it was also, it came with its own set of emotional and mental challenges. So much so that, my great grandmother, bless her heart and God rest her soul, she instructed before she passed, 3 to 4 months before she passed, she instructed my grandmother to call the ambulance, have her transported to the hospital so that she could check herself into a nursing facility, so that she would no longer provide that level of stress and burden on the family unit in caring for her. And so, we begrudgingly honored her wishes, but it was frustrating and hurtful to not be able. It was just to see someone who was trying to be as independent as they wanted to, and then having to care for them the way that we had to end up caring for her. And she felt that she became a burden, to where she felt the need to have to go and live her last days into a nursing facility, so that to relieve some of the pressure on my grandmother and the family. And so as a result of that, just 2 weeks ago, I started having a conversation with my grandmother to say, what are your wishes? How should we handle this when it's time? If that time ever comes, hope prayerfully not, but if it does, let's go and have the conversation now about how we address this issue in a way that is beneficial for all of us.
Absolutely, and I will tell you, I went through the same thing. My sister was living with me. I had planned that we were going to live together. If anything happened to my mother, who was her primary caregiver, that she was going to live with me. And when it came time that she had to go into a nursing home, it did and still does affect my mental health. And we're going to talk about mental health issues, because we feel, okay, no, you were supposed to be, I have a line in my show where the Big Mama gets sick, Big Mama's in a hospital bed in the living room, because we want to see Big Mama every day. And there's a relative that's a certified nursing assistant, but she believes she's an LVN, RN, but she go take care of Big Mama. And that's the way we were raised. But there are services that we have to understand that are better suited. But there are a lot of people that don't even know these services are afforded to them or exist. And that's why today is a very important day. And we pray your strength and pray the strength of all who are affected with this type of situation. Let's go to Aisha, because when I talked about being a young woman, caregiving, let's go to Aisha and want to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Ms. Underwood. It's certainly a pleasure and an honor to be in conversation with each of you this afternoon. I became a caregiver in 2013 when, like Rita, my mother was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, which is the leading form of dementia for folks under the age of 60. And it was certainly something that I was unprepared to take on, but also willing to take on because I love my parents and I've seen care in the way that it's shown up over the course of my life, and my parents provided care to me. I was born 3 months prematurely, weighed 1.5 pounds at birth, had significant health challenges, and saw both of my parents experience various health issues throughout the course of my foundational years, which certainly had an impact on me in the way that I viewed and observed care. However, when I became a caregiver, there were just so many things that I did not know. There was a feeling of inadequacy in terms of being prepared, being knowledgeable about end-of-life issues and other things that we tend to shy away from discussing, particularly in the Black community, things that are taboo. And I really just saw a lack of support and a lack of access to formal supports like home and community-based services, which really led me into the work that I do professionally as a constituency organizer for caring across generations. My lived experience became my professional passion because I really observed where voices of Black and Brown folks were not being represented in policy. In addition, I understood that more and more millennial caregivers, with our baby boomer parents aging, were going to become or millennials were going to become caregivers, and tremendously needed not only policy change, but also tangible support and safe spaces to express themselves with others who shared that experience in a unique way. So I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Absolutely, from one preemie to another. We're little, but we came to Earth to do what we needed to do, and I look forward to the discussion of not just systemic circumstances precluding us to gaining access to resources. I think I said that diplomatically, but also the fact that some people say, well, somebody else will do it. Well, sometimes there is no one else to do it, or I don't have what you have, or I don't want to, or, people have to understand that there are services out there that these conversations are very, very necessary. And the pre-planning is necessary. The forward vision is very, very necessary, but also the fight for access to these services, because there are others who get the services, and then when you come to get them, I can't be affording them. So let's get to some of our questions. Let's start with Rita. We noted that there are many challenges that come with family caregiving. Rita, can you please give us more insight into what some of those challenges might be?
Absolutely, Cheryl. And, we've talked through many of them just listening through or to the stories of my fellow panelists. But there are a few that I want to highlight. And I think it really starts with the importance, as you've noted several times, of having this conversation in Black communities. I think that there's an assumption that when you're in a Black family, that we take care of each other, no matter what. And while that may be true, there is oftentimes that leaves not an opening for the discussion. We don't like to talk about death. We don't like to talk about what will happen as we age. And as such, when crises occur or the reality becomes present, we don't know what to do and we don't know how to ask for help. On the other side, as Aisha spoke about, there are services, but too often those services are not targeted to the Black community. Too often, due to structural inequities and racism in our communities, those services may not be, the quality is not as high, the access to quality services isn't high, so we have to go outside of community, which then leads us to say, well, we'll just do it ourselves. I think it's really important. We hear this phrase all the time to caregivers, if, make sure to put your oxygen mask on first. But within the Black community and many other communities, it's very difficult. And what good does an oxygen mask do if it has holes in it, holes that are created by the systems that surround us? And so we at AARP and other organizations are really working to change that. I think the out-of-pocket cost that Reggie talked about is a huge issue within our community and others. There's this expectation that family caregivers are responsible for everything. Well, as a family caregiver myself, it's impossible to be responsible for everything. You're just not able to fully support the needs of an older adult or someone with a disability while at the same time trying to work a full-time job, while at the same time caring for one, two, or three young children. And so it becomes extremely important that there are supports within the community. We know that 60% of family caregivers work. So our employers, it's very important that employers support family caregivers. And then just across the board with both in public and private sector, that family caregivers are given the opportunity to do what they really want to do, but they need access to those resources and they need that support. And then my final point really is around the healthcare system. Healthcare providers, all too often, it's a mystery how to interact. They do not communicate with family caregivers. All too often, family caregivers are left spinning, trying to have the conversation, trying to understand how to better care. Very often, healthcare providers give family caregivers highly complex tasks to do at home, and they have no idea how to do that. And so to that last point, it's very crucial that healthcare providers also understand who family caregivers are and what their needs are and meet them, at least meet them where they are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking to that, we would hope that people would understand, and this question is to you, Melody, that typically the caregiving responsibility falls to Black women. In fact, 66% of Black caregivers are women. So, Melody, could you speak to, especially with hearing what Sister Rita has just said, the issues that Black women caregivers in particular face?
Thank you. I was just listening to Rita and going, yes. And I hear that so much. We talked about the fact that Black women we are the primary heads of household. And we also many times are the ones who have to step up. Of course, as our brother Romeo says, brothers do it too. My brother helped take care of my mother for 20 plus years before she passed. So that is a fact. But as Black women, we tend to also have a challenge when it comes to income. And so when I always tell people, my paycheck, girl, is not my paycheck, because I've got to help make sure. So there's all kinds of also intangible things that you don't see as quote unquote caregiving, but they are, right? To make sure that the families, folks in the family are able to be whole, at least the basics of being able to survive economic challenges. And so as Black women, as being the responsibility of caregiving also means that we may not achieve all the things that we may want to do. Folks may have to step away from their education or not go after that next higher paying job. And so as Black women, we also retire with so much less. Average income wealth for Black women, $100, right? So if there's a crisis in the family, and we don't know about the resources or don't have access to them. And knowledge is power. And so I love this conversation because, as I mentioned earlier, you know, just being able to know, have the information is what is critically needed in our community. But Black women balancing, if you're in the sandwich generation where you taking care of your parents and you're taking care of your children, all these things have a really adverse impact on Black women's ability to actually retire with income, with the kind of wealth that's needed to survive retirement and not end up poor in retirement. And that happens too often in our community. So yeah, we have challenges, but the kind of conversation we're having here, Cheryl, when you talked about what our organizations can do, which is why for our organization, this is a really critical conversation that has to be multi-generational, because it doesn't just happen down the road. It can happen in a blink of an eye, and you find yourself not knowing what to do. So yeah, information is power. So thank you.
And I'm sure you're going to go to your members of Delta Sigma Theta and all sororities. Let's come together and talk about this. We have to plan for it, and we have to plan for it early, because you just never know what's going to happen. You may be the person, or you may be the caregiver. And when you're talking about things that you need, lawyers, you know, sometimes you have to fight for some of these services. And then I will say this, and if I'm out of pocket, I'm sure someone will let me know. Sometimes it make you feel as a Black person, you're not supposed to have any of this. You're not supposed to know this, or you just make do with what you have. And then when you find out that there were by law services you were supposed to get, but because of discrimination, because of racism, because of the fact that people don't want you to have inequity. You don't want you to have the equal parts that you should have as a citizen of this country. And then when you find out late that this could have been afforded to you, it's so disappointing. It's just a hard feeling. If I wasn't in the career that I'm in, I don't think that I would have the services that I have. So that's why I want to be a part of this discussion, because we all have to bring our resources to make sure that everyone who is a caregiver can get the resources that they need. Dr. Stockett, Melanie just shared her insights on Black women as caregivers, but what is less known is that men are increasingly providing care. And there's a couple of questions here, and I'm gonna kind of go off script just a little bit. If you could tell us about the experience of Black male caregivers, but also I was widowed in my 20s. I knew I was going to take care of my sister, and with dating, and if you marry a man who's taking care of a family member, or if a man is going to marry me, and my duty is to be a caregiver. Can you speak to that, Dr. Stockett?
A single parent, yes. And one thing that I am proud to say nationally and for all men, but for Black men in particular, we have become very evolved over the years. And especially over the last 20 or 30 years, where the social numbers have pushed us to it. We have more divorces. We have more Black male single parent. And one thing, when I was in the hospice business, regardless of the family that was there and present and positioned to care for the client, I always pressed for where are the men here, and invited them or insisted on their participation in the process. And when you were talking about accessing care, you know, policy drives all of the inequities, okay? It's not even the clinical practices or whatever, it's the policies. And they actually had policies in place that almost prohibit men from accessing services for a care that they were providing home care for, simply because of either income, availability, status, or what have you. So in every regard that we address issues of the caregiver, please focus on how can you impact the policy that affects the opportunity for access. And what I want to encourage everyone to do when you talk about support for a caregiver, they need liaison. They should have someone that will speak for them. It could be at their church, it could be at a local, it could be through the fraternity, sorority. They are going to be busy and engaged enough, okay? But they still have the voice, and they have to be able to access those care, those support services. So your churches, your fraternity, sorority have incredible programs to support. But one of the largest and toughest thing is not to speak of female, but accessing transportation, access with hours if you're working, and all of those things have to be addressed, and in order to enhance the service, the opportunity to be a caregiver. But one other point that I want to make is so important is the family dynamics are so critical when it comes down to who does what. And that's when you recognize that, you got to honor folks' capacity. Some folks is flat can't do it. Someone who has been doing or leading up to it for a number of years, when they're put in that position now for it to happen, they just crash and burn. So you don't want those kinds of issues to actually disrupt or destroy the family. But you got to be prepared for that as you get closer and closer to your involvement. And that's what we did in many of the hospice families, to prepare them and know and understand as we go toward the opportunity to be a caregiver. And this is what these programs like this and AARP and these awareness programs and these community service access programs really do to enhance the ability of the parent. But everything else as far as men and women at this point, it's pretty much equal as far as knowing and understanding the responsibility, in many cases stepping up. And I know of many estranged, if you were, fathers or brothers whom came home for the sole purpose of either being a caretaker or being a part of the care. So you got to entertain those discussions well in advance. So planning is important. Look at the policies that cause the inequities and address them hard, because they are all local.
Absolutely. And I had mentioned earlier that I became a caregiver early in my life. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And Aisha, we often think that a family caregiver is someone over 50, when in fact, 53% of Black caregivers are between the age of 18 and 49. So as a millennial caregiver who has been caring for both parents for quite some time, can you talk to us about your experience as a younger caregiver and some of your needs?
Certainly. Yes, I think that being a younger adult caregiver certainly comes with unique challenges. Primarily, first of all, education around issues like Medicare and understanding power of attorney and all of this terminology that, again, we don't discuss very often in the Black community. And these are things that are critically important to making sure that the person you are caring for gets access to the services they need, as well as quality of care that they deserve. And so a lack of understanding and literacy around these issues can make it certainly difficult. Additionally, oftentimes if you are a younger adult yourself, that means that your parent may be younger and may not be, for instance, in my mother's case, she was diagnosed at the age of 57. So she was not eligible for Medicare. So that, those out-of-pocket expenses that have been mentioned were crushing really to our family. My father continued to work full-time. I'm an only child, so I stepped into that role of caregiver. So that's certainly a challenge that many young adult caregivers face. And then additionally, the caregiver themselves they face challenges around their own futures and their own financial security, social security, because for many, they've had to either delay or interrupt their education. There may be gaps in their resume. We already know that, the Black folks face hiring discrimination. And so, any excuse like those gaps in resumes, not to hire you, it certainly can be an impact. Additionally, your own family planning, the ability to, we plan kind of around the nuclear family structure. If you, and many people certainly choose not to marry, and that's great. However, as I age and I look at our lack of services, our lack of community supports, and just the way that communities have changed over time. My father tells stories of, when he went up to check on his grandmother, they would check on neighbors as well. Older women who did not marry, and there is a sense of responsibility and community. They've been in these communities for generations. That's not as much the case now. People are more transient and move around, and you just don't have that same sense of community responsibility that perhaps you have had in the past. So therefore, you do have a greater dependence on the policies that create these services, as well as the funding. And then lastly, if there are interruptions in your career, you oftentimes don't have savings, as Rita alluded to earlier. You don't have savings, and we often don't have access to generational wealth. And so, as I age, I've just started a savings account this year. And that's something that, as I near 40, I certainly give thought to about my own health, my own security, and what my future looks like.
And I'm glad that you're saying this, because I think most people just don't see, even with AARP, they don't think that, they think AARP is for people in their 50s, and they don't understand that you can become part of AARP in your 30s. And had I known that in my 30s, and had I understood that in my 30s, I'm sure I would be more participatory earlier. I'm going to call it audible. Was it Omaha? I'm going to call it audible real fast. Before we get to Lakeisha, Melanie, I know you have another destination to impart your wisdom, but can you give us some thoughts before you have to go to your next situation? And then we're going to go to Lakeisha about legislative call to action. So, Melanie, first, can you speak?
Thank you, Cheryl. Again, thank you, AARP, for the invitation. And apologize, I had two things happening at the same time. Right?
That's all right.
But one of the things that as Black women, we have to allow ourselves to be, and not to be superwoman, not to be superwomen. We can be super without all the burdens of being superwoman, and understand that it's okay to talk about these things, share, and understand that the kinds of stresses and strains that it's kind of the thing. We have to take care of ourselves, and it's okay to be able to share that you having challenges, right? It's a part of sometimes you feel as the person who is this, most of us are heads of household, so that comes with some element of that responsibility. But it's really important that we do that. And then there's something very tangible that's going on when it comes to the kinds of things that are needed to be in place to help not just Black women, but for all of us, and that's pushing for federal paid family leave, and how important that is, and how it will have an impact on being able to address some of these issues that we are discussing today. Because in many cases, because you don't have that, and to be able to talk to an employer about one thing COVID has done. We hadn't really talked about the issue of COVID-19, right? And as a survivor of it myself, being able to understand that if ever there was a time to understand there's a need for something universal like that, that crosses all generations and backgrounds, it's the issue around paid families. I want to throw that out there as something that we need to all speak up about, and just list the sisters. We can be super, but we don't have to be super women.
Absolutely, and because it has an impact on your mental health as well. Exactly. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And, we are our sisters and brothers keeper. We have to stay strong, but sometimes we just say, hey, you need some help, or let me take over, or let me do this. But I love the fact that you're talking about paid family leave. You're talking about the impact of COVID. For most people, if you are a service provider, even in your employment, you don't get to work from home. So you don't get that. You have to go out and do that work. But Lakeisha, I want to ask you, what it should be a part of our call to action, and how can constituents encourage their representatives in Congress to focus more on issues around family caregiving? What do we do? What is the charge? Give us a charge.
Well, first of all, I know Melanie just had to jump off, but I just want to thank her for that word. Although, as a mother of a working mother of a young Black son, that is reassuring to hear and comforting to hear those words. But there are a lot of issues that were raised that quite frankly are at the forefront of our legislative agenda. Thankfully, the systemic inequities, the lack of access to quality care and quality services, the disproportionate how Black and brown women disproportionately make up paid and unpaid, in terms of being paid and unpaid, caregiving, paid family leave. So in Congress, thankfully, unfortunately, it took the pandemic to center these issues. These issues and conversations have always been around and been raised by a mighty few, but now they have been elevated to the center of House Democrats' agenda, President Biden's agenda, in his Build Back Better agenda. So much so that we're trying to address these issues more holistically instead of more fragmented. The credit for care that AARP is pushing is key to, as he said, to helping those families as they're caring for their families, but also trying to transition into hopefully getting access to the service like health, the home and community-based services that Aisha mentioned. And the paid family leave is also an important component, and those things are all part of the agenda. And hopefully we're able to do something on these issues in the next couple of months. But what we need from constituents, what we need from folks are a couple of things. One is to get engaged. And the first way to get engaged, is to vote. Because if you do not vote and be a part of this process, then we're unable to elect representatives who share our values. We're unable to elect representatives who look like us, who can share the experiences and the perspective, who can influence these policies that we have been excluded from so long. So, vote and engage. To engage in the process. Show up at events your member of Congress has, their town halls, and raise this issue and share your story. Sharing your personal story is the best testimony that you can give to help influence policy. And so don't be afraid to share that and to share that with your elected official. The third thing, honestly, is just to start building momentum and join coalitions. AARP, wonderful organizations. They also have groups and coalitions that they're a part of. In order to continue to build momentum and keep this as a part of the conversation, even after, I'm gonna claim it, even after we address this legislatively, in the next couple of months, it can't be a one and done type of thing. And so build coalitions, become part of coalitions, to continue to put the pressure on members of Congress and even your local and state elected officials as well, to make sure that these issues are a part of the conversation and remain a conversation. I just want to leave you with this. We are at a time where we have an opportunity to make some really big, huge transformational changes legislatively. And so I encourage us all to seize this moment and engage in every way that they can. But I'm just going to go back to how I opened, and that is to vote, because these issues will always remain. We'll always be able to address these issues if we vote and make sure that the people that represent us, share our values.
Absolutely, absolutely, and vote on all levels. It's not just for the presidency. You have to vote on your local level, your state assembly, because you have a state impact there. You have the federal impact there, and if you know that we just saved a democracy by exercising our right to vote, that's why some people don't want us to vote, and they want to put forth legislation that will restrict our ability to vote. Then there's a lot at stake. You have to vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Let me thank all of our wonderful panelists for their honesty, the rich dialogue that we just shared, and sharing their experiences and expertise. Family caregiving is an issue worthy of discussion, and I appreciate their commitment and dedication to helping address the needs of family caregivers. Many of us will fall into this role at some point of our lives, and I hope today's conversation provided you with important information that could be helpful. And if you're ever faced with navigating how best to care for an aging or disabled loved one, remember, you are not alone. It's a great song by Michael Jackson. Just remember that song. You are not alone. There are many organizations like AARP, the Black Women's Roundtable, 100 Black Men, Black Greek letter organizations, your churches, everything that's happening in your community, and caring across generations that are advocating for policy solutions and creating resources for family caregivers. For more information about the great work that these organizations and many, many more who need to join this noble cause can do, please visit their respective websites. And again, we're going to have to do this again because there's more discussion to be had. Don't you all agree? We're going to need to do this again. And as we get ready, and these are my words, not the words of AARP, get ready for the midterm. Get ready for the midterm. Get ready for the midterm.
Wow. My. What information. Now, guys, I must share with you, this video is an older video. So when they were speaking about voting and also mentioning, you heard COVID, those type of things, we know that we've already gone through COVID, and yeah, we know we've already done that. But the information that was brought forth was so rich in sharing the importance of community and culture in supporting the Black family caregiver. Guys, I'm telling you, this is your my name is Queen C. Pinkston. Guys, make sure that you comment, like, share this video. Every caregiver, but every Black caregiver need to hear what was discussed on this video today. This information was truly outstanding, because this is what we do as Black family caregivers. This information goes, we've been doing series on dialysis. I work in dialysis, hemodialysis, but I need to share this with you. If I can be open and if I can be very upfront with you, dialysis is a terminal ailment. It is a terminal ailment. The kidney has failed. And even though it is replaced, it extends for a while, or even though on hemodialysis, the process lasts for a while. My husband lasted for 20 years on the hemodialysis machine. People last sometimes even longer, but I need you to know it don't always work that way. And it is a terminal ailment, and people do pass away. So many things that they mention on getting prepared, planning, knowing what you're going to do. With dementia, that's what my mom had. Remember, I told you, short memory loss. In dementia, she lived long, but I still had to make plans. We must do that. We always had plans about, okay, what is it that you want? We had plans, we had discussions, I should say, about what is it that you want. It's called getting your will in place. Your living will is extremely critical. You need to have that in place. We'll do a series on that, but not today. Just wanted to touch bases on some of the things that they had shared today on all those various areas, being even the men. I enjoyed the doctor because we have a lot of male caregivers in them dealing with life as a man and in caring for their loved one, their wife, their mother. I know male caregivers, young male caregivers right now, that some have been on the show in caring for their mother, and there is some caring for their spouses in various things. So these are very, very important topics in the Black community, and we can no longer be silent as thinking that is only us and it's just closed off just to me and my family and just what I'm dealing with, and nobody else needs to know, and I got it all. You heard them say over and over and over, like you hear me say so many times, you are not super, super, super woman. You're not super, super, super guy. I know, because I've always been the one with broad shoulders. I've always been the one that everybody can cry on my shoulder. And I've always been the one that seemed like I can stand up and hold it all. That's fine. But if you continue doing that, you will break down. So by God's grace, I did not break down, and I thank God for it. But my job now, my ministry now, my service now is to help you not break down. Okay? There's a song, I don't have it with me right now, but one songwriter wrote it. He says, I need you to survive. I need you to survive. I need you. You need me. Yeah, we need each other. What you pray for me, I pray for you. Remember those lyrics? Yeah, I need you to survive. We need each other to survive. So as family caregivers, in our culture, the community, we need the church, we need the community, we need family, we need friends, we need each other. And as time goes on and things get harder, we're going to need each other even more so. I know the younger person on the video, she shared how times have changed and we don't have the village and the community anymore like we had years ago, but we still need each other. We still can reach out and support each other. This was an enriched video. This video, oh my God, I couldn't stop listening to it at the information that they brought forth. It didn't matter whether they were young, whether they were single, whether they were all in professions. I mean, the doctor, he talked about himself being divorced and then being a parent and then being a caregiver. I mean, just so much information came forth. We need this, guys. I need you to take this video. I need you to share this video. I need you to share this video, guys. People need to hear what these people had to say. Now, we know, I love the ending part when the legal part came about. She said, what can we do? She made it so clear. Vote. We can vote. We must vote. And she made it very clear. It's not about just voting for the president. We must vote in the local elections, because these are the ones that are concerned. They're the ones with the nursing homes and all of the things that we are dealing with every day. The president don't care if you are taking your loved one to a nursing home or anywhere else. He's not even involved with that. I don't care who's in the office. That's not his concern. But she was saying, when you reach out to your local constituents, the ones that are making the decisions over what we're doing with our families every day, these are the ones that we got to make sure that we vote. And we can't just vote. She also said, make sure that you're going to vote for somebody who is going to reach your needs and make sure your needs are in there. Guys, we got to make sure that we research on who it is and what they stand for, because times are getting hard. She made a point. She said, getting going, we got to go. I'm trying to say this quickly. She made a point here. Well, many more people are becoming now your baby boomers and various ones, you know what I'm saying? So you're going to be caring for people. You're going to be caring for your grandmom. You're going to be caring for your aunts, for your nieces. The younger people are going to be caring for their parents. We need to know what to do with this. Oh my God, this was a rich video. I am so overwhelmed with the information that I was able to dig up and find. You see, even though it was a couple of years old, it doesn't matter, because it still applies today. And now, with things being changed the way that they're being changed, we're still, I didn't even watch the news today. I was out doing a local health walk, so I don't know what the news is today. I don't know what has been cut today. Don't know if something, the Medicaid has been taken away, or Medicare been taken away, or Social Security been taken away, or whatever's been taken away. But we know that all of these things will affect you as a family caregiver and taking care of your loved one. She talked about savings. The young lady, she said, my goodness, if I had known, she says, I'm 40 years old now, and I'm just starting my savings account because I never put anything aside. The other lady talked about is caregivers, when you retire with nothing. She said, one black family care, what you retire with is $100, or you retire with this, or whatever you retire with. Now you're a caregiver, you're going to end up with nothing. So there's a lot of information that we need to know, guys. So I'm digging and I'm digging and I'm digging and I'm looking for stuff. I need stories. I need your stories. I need your help as I continue to dig. You find something, guys, that you think we need to share. We need to video that you think would be interesting, that will bless other people that maybe I didn't find yet. Guys, you can share it with me. You can share it with me. You can email me. You can email it to me. Put this in real quick before I go. Oh my God, spell my name right. Yes. I think I already have this printed up somewhere down there, but I'll put it in right here, right now. There. And you can send me that information. Let me put it in there. Overlay. Yeah, there it is right there. And you can send me that information, guys, if you find something that you think would really, really help. Yeah, I got it again right there too. There it is right there. Okay. And that you think that would really help other caregivers, because it's a community thing. It's all about community. It's not about me, you, myself, and I. It's all about community, guys. So I need your help. So listen, guys, I'm going to see you right here in our next video.